Chris, there's no question that this airport has changed dramatically in the last 2 or 3 years. Can you just take us through the background to what's been happening here?
4 years ago, Melbourne had an international market share within Australia of just shy of 20%. And when I got here, Peter, the first thing that struck me was that this great state of ours and this great city should be attracting more of the world's best airlines and more of the world's great travelling public. And I couldn't get my head around it at that time why it was that Sydney was the hub into and out of Australia when Victoria and Melbourne had so many benefits. And in an aviation sense, of course, those sort of benefits are our curfew-free status, our very low charges that we levy upon airlines. And I couldn't understand why it was that we weren't being more successful. And I think it's all down to selling a vision and getting buy-in to a vision. And various agencies and private industries in Victoria joined with us on a mission then to significantly increase the number of airlines and thus passengers that use Melbourne Airport. And the last 3 years speak for themselves, with double-digit growth in international passengers, kind of twice the average of Australia, and therefore we are seeing now a structural market share shift from New South Wales and Sydney into Melbourne, and that supports our vision about Melbourne becoming the international gateway into and out of Australia. And some of the components of that growth might seem surprising, but they haven't been surprising to us. A couple of examples there. We are still seeing growth in our USA market, we're still seeing growth in our UK market, we're still seeing growth in our Ireland market. Australia as a whole isn't, but because we've got a structural shift of airline capacity now to Melbourne, so some of these markets are growing here and in decline elsewhere. But I think the big story, Peter, as you probably would expect being down here, is really we are at the heart of the global economic engine that is Asia. And so a lot of the growth that we are seeing is naturally to and from Asia, being led by China, but not exclusively. Because if you look then across Asia, India significantly up, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand significantly up, Indonesia significantly up, Vietnam going gangbusters, Hong Kong surging, and Taiwan going ballistic. So all of those core Asian markets are performing exceptionally well, but the big story is China.
But you haven't just received this wave of new passengers. What you've done in accepting it is you've built up a very robust infrastructure here at the airport. You've invested very significantly indeed. I mean, how much have you pitched in?
I think you have to do several things very well all at the same time. First thing we had to do very well is to convince our customer airlines to take us seriously, and there were markets to serve. And the investment in that is one of having great people, having great marketing literature, and having a partnership approach with other like-minded agencies and industries who could convince airlines that there were high-yielding customers to serve. Now that was a huge bit of work on our part. In cash terms, yes, the investment has been quite significant. So in the last 3 years in our international bit of our campus, we've invested about $350, $360 million. A lot of things the public can't see. So brand new baggage infrastructure, for example. Government agency infrastructure that makes passenger processing, isn't that a horrible term, work a lot better. But there's a lot of investment in the things we hope that will delight our travelling public, but also some of those cultures that come and visit us. So we have invested heavily in a new retail precinct, we have invested heavily in check-in precincts and departure gates precincts. And the look and feel of these things are designed to actually ride the Asian growth wave in the next 5 years. So some colour schemes you'll see, some signage you'll see, some language announcements you'll see, even some of the staff you see are deliberately there so that as we ride this Asian growth curve up, they will be as relevant today in 5 years' time as they are today. And just to even do that took a couple of years of heavy planning and training and encouragement and recruitment. So all of this actually comes together.
We're sitting in the middle of the departures area, and this is perhaps your most public exposition of your investment program, and it really is a delight. It's a sensual and sensory experience, and it's a great product offer, all told. Where do you go from here?
Okay, we've future-proofed this for at least the next 5 years worth of above average passenger growth, and so we have space, and we're already planning the next iteration of that. And I think the look and feel of this, it has some real Melbourne iconic architecture. It has some great brands and retailers who are very used to doing business within Asia. And it has obviously a great duty-free walk-through store. Crikey, you and I think, way back in our youth, Peter, were discussing the merits of walk-through stores, probably in the mid-90s. But it's still as relevant today, providing the product offering suits your passengers. So yeah, it's great right now. It will continue to be great, and then we'll expand again at the appropriate time.
So if there's one thing that you wanted to say to the viewing audience about this airport, what would it be?
I think there are two things I'd like to say to different audiences. Certainly for the retail brands that see themselves doing business with Asia, please look to Australia. We are part of Asia, and in fact, because of our commodities and our raw materials here, we are the engine, in a sense. So if you want to get your brands in front of these customers, look to Australia seriously, but also favour Melbourne, which is the highest growth region servicing Asia. So that's the first thing I'd like to say. And secondly, to airlines, I think the phrase I'd like to use is capture Melbourne, capture Australia. This is the ideal Australian hub for your business. There is a commitment here from me and the owners of our business to continue to invest ahead of the demand curve in capacity so that we are ready, willing and able to capture the growth. Now, in the last 5 years, we've probably spent on this airport, I want to say $500 million. In the next 5 years, our investment is likely to be $1.2 billion. That's the level of commitment that we have got to keep ahead of the demand curve so that we've always got a product to sell and we never turn anyone away.
Chris Woodruff, always good to see you. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Peter. Been a pleasure.